The Beginner's Guide to Friendship Bracelets is a collection of photo tutorials for beginners that will take you all the way from the basics to the more advanced stuff. It is now available for purchase worldwide anywhere you typically buy books, and there is also a direct link in the description. I have a lot of multicolored string, and I thought with the Masha's Multicolors challenge currently being open, now is the perfect time for me to show you all of the strings in my collection. Some of which I've bought, some of which I was gifted, and some of which I got through various exchanges. I don't remember the brands for all of these strings. If a string has a label, I'll show it to you. And if I know the brand, I'll either try to leave it on screen or let you know some other way. But a lot of the strings I get sent in bunches or on bobbins, and I have no idea what this is. In those cases, I see it as more inspiration for you to let you know what is out there, and maybe you can find something like that available to you. But let's get into it. I'll start off with this bag of strings. I'm pretty sure I got this from AliExpress. There's obviously quite a few strings still in the bag, but I definitely used quite a lot from this bag. I like it when strings are sold like this because it's easy to get a nice variety for relatively cheap. But the problem with this is that there's usually only one string per each color, or per each variety of colors, I would rather say. And the problem with that is that if I like a specific multicolored string, say this one, and I wanted to make a bracelet out of it, more often than not, the bracelet will require more string that is actually in this one string. So unless I'm making a small bracelet where I don't need that much of the multicolored string, I can't really use this. Definitely can't use this as a background in alphas because obviously that would require way too much string, but even for a lot of normal patterns. If you need 8 strings or more, if you're going 1 meter per string, this is exactly 8 meters. So it can be pretty tight. But that's not to say you can't use these. Some of these I've started, so I've obviously been using them. And it does offer a very nice variety. I especially like these kinds of strings. I have a soft spot for like purples and pinks. So these would be my favorite selections. I also have quite a bit of yarn. This kind of yarn isn't really embroidery floss, obviously, because it's yarn, and it's also twisted. It has a slightly different thickness, but it produces more or less similar sized knots to friendship bracelets. I also have a few of different brands. I think this string is a little thinner, but I've used it in bracelets before and it's turned out all right. The main benefit of using yarn is obviously that there is quite a lot of it, and I typically use this for my alphas. Like if I'm making a big alpha with a background color that is multicolored, I would use something like this. The difficulty with alphas specifically is that you want to make sure that your knots come out of roughly the same sizes. So if you're mixing brands of string, keep that in mind, especially if you're using something like a crochet yarn and then mixing it with embroidery floss. If your knots are coming out entirely different sizes, it will mess up your rows, so you have to be quite careful and conscious of that. But I've made bracelets with this yarn before and it's turned out all right, and it does give you a lot of string to work with. There's also some nice multicolored varieties. I really like this one, for example. It gives such sunset vibes. I also have one that's kind of a pastel rainbow, which I really like. And I have so many more colors as well, which I love to use. Out of these ones, I think my favorite has to be this purple and pink one, and also this blue one. I think I've used this blue one in at least 3 separate alphas. I love using yarn in my bracelets. There is also another brand of yarn that I use, which is this one. It is specific to Russia though, so unless you live there, I doubt that you'll be able to get it. Some of my family lives in Moscow, so I visit Russia quite frequently, and the strings there are cheap, so most of the strings I buy from there. London prices are ridiculous. But this is also very good because it offers that same length of string. You don't have to worry. I've used a lot of these strings as backgrounds to alphas as well for the same reason. I don't have to worry about that string running out. I can always replace it, and I know that I'll be fine. This is just cotton yarn, so if you find something similar in a store near you, I feel like that should work. Just experiment with it a little bit. I also have these multicolors by Anchor. So these are crochet threads. I obviously bought them at different times because the branding looks a little different, even though it's the same string. I actually haven't used either of these, which is surprising to me. I think I originally got this to use in a Christmas bracelet, but then I realized the green and the red alternating makes for a challenging color choice for the rest of the colors. So again, I think unless I'm using this as a background to an alpha, it can be quite difficult. Just because when you're trying to match a multicolored string to something else, you have to make sure that it contrasts enough with the other strings that you're going to be using. So for example, you want something like this. You want your multicolored string to be obvious and visible within the bracelet, rather than something like this. You might not even be able to tell that these two bracelets are actually the same pattern and use the same multicolored string, but you can't tell the pattern here because it blends too much with the background color. And same here, like you can tell the pattern, but it's very difficult to see anything within this bracelet because it blends so much, and occasionally that multicolored string goes yellow as well and it just blends with everything. There is a white and a cream there and you just can't see them. So you want to make sure that your string stands out against the other colors that you're going to be using, but it can be quite difficult when strings are so multicolored because you need to make sure that it stands out against all of them. For something like this, I would use either a black or a white. That's probably the easiest to contrast with. But also the problem that you encounter with yarn like this and like this, or the problem you can encounter, is something that you see in this bracelet, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it can be. The colors change super slowly. So we have a giant block of pink, then quite a big block of blue, which randomly got interrupted with a bit of yellow. And then, the blocks of colors are quite large, so it doesn't quite create that same effect as, say, something like this would. I actually randomly picked up 2 meow patterns. That was not intentional. Speaks volumes about what kind of patterns I enjoy making, huh? But you see how the color changes a lot quicker here than it does here. Yarn that is made for bigger projects, such as crochet or knitting, will have slower color changes because obviously it's not really made for bracelets or for anything like what we're doing. Again, that's not necessarily a problem. Sometimes you might want to have that look, but it is something that you should think about and maybe experiment with a little bit with the specific strings that you're going to be using. I also occasionally like to use strings that are monochrome. And by that I mean strings that are essentially a variation of the same color. Like these are all variations of brown, of blue, of green, of purple, blue again, and brown again. So these aren't necessarily strings in which the colors change, say from pink to purple to green. They're all the same color with slight variations. I feel like there is definitely a place for these kinds of strings. These are not the type of strings that I typically gravitate towards whenever I'm making a multicolored bracelet, because if I'm making a multicolored bracelet, I'm in the mood to go multicolored, but then occasionally I do find a place for them. Like in this pattern, for example, this is a monochrome background string. Different shades of blue, but I think it works really well because obviously I am going for an ocean vibe. I've got a little jellyfish. So I don't have a ton of these kinds of strings. I do maybe have some more on bobbins and stuff, like just lying around, but occasionally I do find the use for them. And then here I have some more multicolored strings. I think these ones are Anchor and these ones are DMC. These ones are some of the ones I bought most recently. I actually felt like I was going crazy because I could not find them. I searched everywhere and I couldn't find them, and it got to the point where I genuinely started gaslighting myself into believing that I never bought them, so I had to go back, watch my own reel on Instagram where I'm at the string shop picking out the strings, and I witnessed myself pick them up from the shelf, and I know that I bought them after that. So I was like, okay, they do exist, but I couldn't find them. It took me like half an hour and then I found them in the most random place. But I love these kinds of strings. The color changes are subtle enough that I feel like contrasting this would be relatively easy, but then they're different enough that I think it would create a very interesting bracelet. I also just have a bunch of different bobbins of string that was sent to me. I used to have a PO box and sometimes you guys would send me mail and I would receive a bunch of string like this. I think all of this was from one person, but I also have more from other people, and sometimes these strings were ones that you dyed yourself, and sometimes these strings were just ones that you had that you felt like sharing with me. I actually think in this specific case, I recognize some of these because I definitely have full versions of this as well. But this is how I would get some of the coolest varieties of multicolored strings, like this rainbow one. And not everything came in bobbins. Occasionally I would get sent strings like this or like this. Obviously it was packaged better before. And sometimes even like this. This is some great winding. I don't know if I could do this. I'm guessing this is similar to the twisted ties, but I'm not quite sure how to get it into that shape. And then also this, I think these two came from the same person. I'm really, really grateful that people would send me their strings. It definitely helped me broaden my horizons and get more multicolored strings into my collection that I wouldn't have access to otherwise. So it's been really fun to try making bracelets with this. Maybe I should do a video specifically where I make bracelets from strings that you sent me. I think that could be pretty cool. But then my favorite part of the collection is, of course, rainbow and rainbow adjacent strings. Anything that's somewhat of a rainbow fits into this category for me. I have a soft spot for rainbows. I just really love them. I think they work in most patterns. It's the most frequent color combination I make bracelets with ever. And so whenever I get access to a rainbow string, let me add this one to the pile, I get really excited. The one that I was specifically most excited about was this rainbow string. This is the coolest thing that anybody has ever sent me. Like, this is such a vibrant rainbow and it creates such gorgeous bracelets. I'm a bit conservative with the string because I'm trying not to use too much of it. I'm trying to like save it for some future bracelets that I might want to make, but at the same time I do want to use it because otherwise it's just going to be lying around. So far I've used it in 3 bracelets and I think it fit all 3 of them perfectly. Like, tell me these are not gorgeous. I am in love with them. These are like some of my favorite bracelets I've ever made by far. But I think that's all I have to show you guys today. And these are all of the strings that I have to show you today. As I said, the Masha's Multicolors challenge is currently open to submissions. You can submit on Instagram under the hashtag Masha's Multicolors, or you can submit on Discord, the link to which is in my description. There is a special channel for challenge submissions, and there is no deadline currently. I'm going to feature some of the bracelets in my next wrap-up video, and I'll let you know when the deadline is approaching as we get closer to it. My book, The Beginner's Guide to Friendship Bracelets, is out worldwide. You can buy it anywhere you typically buy books, and there is also a direct link in the description. My publisher can also help you with international shipping if that's something that you're looking for. Use the link in the description to contact them. Before I go, I also want to give a special shout out to my patrons and especially my top supporters. It is with their support that I'm able to continue to create videos on this channel. So if you also want to become a patron and support the work that I do here, the link to that is in the description as always. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Hopefully you got some inspiration, and I would love to see your bracelets submitted to the challenge. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!